Stand your ground laws are legal provisions that exist within the justice system of some U.S. states. At their core, these laws provide individuals with the legal rights to use force, including deadly force, to protect themselves without any obligation to retreat or flee. This concept stems from a person's inherent right to personal safety and security. The principle behind stand your ground laws traces its roots back to the traditional castle doctrine, which originated in English common law. This doctrine asserts that an individual has the right to defend their castle or home from intruders without the duty to retreat. Over time, this doctrine was expanded in some U.S. states to apply to any location a person has a lawful right to be, not just the confines of one's home. Stand your ground laws come into play when a person perceives an immediate threat to their safety. If a person believes they are in danger, these laws permit the use of force proportionate to the threat to defend themselves. The key aspect here is that the person doesn't have to first attempt to escape the situation before resorting to self-defense. These laws vary considerably across different states, and interpretation of these laws can be complex. Some states require that a person be in a specific location, like their home or vehicle, while others have broader definitions. Some states may require a person to prove they had a reasonable fear of imminent harm, while others place the burden of proof on the prosecution to show that the person's use of force was not justified. Stand your ground laws has sparked considerable debate and discussion. Supporters believe they are essential for personal safety and empowerment, allowing law-abiding citizens to protect themselves and their loved ones without fear of legal repercussions. They view these laws as a tool for deterring crime and promoting individual rights. On the other hand, critics argue that stand your ground laws can lead to unnecessary violence and escalate conflicts that could otherwise have been avoided. They express concerns that these laws might be used to legitimize actions stemming from aggression rather than self-defense. Critics also point the potential inequalities in the applications of these laws based on racial or socioeconomic biases. In today's video, we'll look at 3 stand your ground cases, all taking place in Florida. Florida was the first state in the U.S. to adopt a stand your ground law, implementing it in 2005. The law broadened the traditional scope of self-defense rights, removing the duty to retreat before using force in self-defense. This statute applies not only to one's home, based on the castle doctrine, but also to any place where a person has a lawful right to be, making Florida's law one of the most expansive versions of this legislation. Under Florida's stand your ground law, a person is justified in using deadly force if they believe such force is necessary to prevent imminent death, great bodily harm, or the commission of a forcible felony. Unlike some other states, the burden of proof in Florida rests with the prosecution. The state must prove by clear and convincing evidence that the defendant did not act in self-defense in order to counter a stand your ground defense. One unique aspect of Florida's law is its provision for immunity from prosecution. If a person successfully claims a stand your ground defense, they are immune from criminal charges and from being sued in civil court over the incident. This provides an extra layer of legal protection for those invoking this defense. However, Florida's stand your ground law has sparked significant controversy, particularly following high-profile cases such as the Trayvon Martin case in 2012. Critics point out potential issues with how the law is interpreted and applied, leading to discrepancies in its implementation. Despite these controversies, supporters of Florida's stand your ground law maintain that it is a necessary measure to uphold the right of individuals to protect themselves without fear of legal repercussions. Thank you to Elate Apparel for sponsoring today's video. Watching true crime can be intense and suspenseful, and it's important to be comfortable while you're engrossed in the story. That's why Elate casual shorts are the perfect choice for your true crime binge sessions. The front and back panel have differing lengths to give you full coverage. The side slit adds a touch of style and breathability, so you can stay cool and comfortable even during the most gripping moments. And with 2 pockets, you can keep your phone, snacks, and other essentials within reach without having to get up and interrupt the flow of the story. Elate currently carries 3 colors: black, forest green, and sangria red. Simply use code 15WICKED at checkout to receive 15% off of your purchase of Elate Casual Lounge shorts. That's 15WICKED, and the link is in the description below. Alright, back to the story. In the bustling city of Winter Haven, Florida, a tale of life and death unfolds. It's a tale that begins on an ordinary night in a local bar on Highway 27 in Dundee. The bar, filled with the usual chatter and clinking of glasses, is the perfect spot for those seeking to unwind after a long day. Among the patrons is a young woman named Jasmine. As the night progresses, Jasmine consumes more alcohol than she can handle. Her car sits in the parking lot. Recognizing her impaired state, a fellow patron, Jessica, and the bartender decide to call an Uber to ensure Jasmine gets home safely. The Uber arrives, its headlights cutting through the darkness of the night. Jessica, acting as a good Samaritan, helps the inebriated Jasmine into the car. The driver, a man named Robert Westlake, nods in understanding, sets his GPS towards Jasmine's home, and sets off. Robert, an ordinary man earning his living through Uber, is oblivious to the storm that is about to hit. He is unaware of the chain of events that his acceptance of this particular ride has set into motion. In the background of this seemingly ordinary scenario, a misunderstanding is brewing. Jessica's boyfriend, Jason Bowick, is under the impression that it is Jessica who has gotten into the Uber. Their relationship is rocky, tainted by frequent argument and Jason's explosive bouts of anger. Misinterpreting the situation, Jason sends a threatening text to Jessica, stating in no uncertain terms that he is going to, quote, F up the Uber driver, end quote. Jason, however, is gravely mistaken. Jessica is still at the bar, and the woman in the Uber is Jasmine. Neither Jasmine, Jessica, nor Robert know each other. This is a simple case of ensuring a drunk person gets home safely. But Jason's misunderstanding is about to turn this ordinary night into a deadly encounter. Jason, fueled by anger and misunderstanding, follows the Uber driver in his Ford F-250 pickup truck. He tails the car closely, his headlights glaring in the rearview mirror. Robert, the Uber driver, is puzzled by the aggressive driver behind him. He wonders if it's a case of road rage or a drunk driver. But he continues on his path, focusing on getting Jasmine home safely. Suddenly, Jason pulls up beside Robert, his truck a menacing presence. He forces Robert to stop in the middle of the road. Jason jumps out of his truck and approaches Robert, his intentions unclear, but his demeanor threatening. Robert, however, is not just an ordinary Uber driver. He is a licensed firearm carrier and a recent graduate of the police academy. He understands the law and his rights. He has been trained to handle situations like this. As Jason approaches, Robert sees him raise a shiny object from his waist. Believing his life is in danger, Robert makes a split-second decision. He reaches for his firearm and fires at Jason once in the chest. The sound of the weapon hangs in the air.
I say something?
Oh my God.
Jason falls to the ground. The threat he posed is now neutralized. Robert immediately calls 911. His voice, steady yet filled with adrenaline of the moment, reports the incident. He attempts to stop the bleeding, his hands pressing down on Jason's chest in a desperate attempt to save his life. He even performs CPR, but it's too late. Jason breathes his last breath on the cold asphalt, a victim of his own misunderstanding and rash actions. Meanwhile, Jasmine, still in the backseat of the Uber, is too intoxicated to understand what has just transpired. She knows neither Robert nor Jason, and has no connection to the deadly encounter that just took place. She is an innocent bystander, caught up in a situation she didn't ask for, and doesn't understand. She remains in the car, oblivious to the events. This tale serves as a clear example of why stand your ground laws exist. Robert Westlake, an Uber driver just doing his job, was forced to make a split-second decision that ended a life. He was forced to defend his life and the life of his passenger. He is left with the heavy burden of guilt, not for his actions, but for the life he had to take.
I thought for a moment that I hit him in a spot where he could survive. I thought for a moment after doing compressions I had him back.
It's your birthday today and you feel guilty about what you did?
Not about what I did, but guilty that someone else doesn't get to enjoy the things that I get to enjoy. Everything I do right now, I'm constantly being reminded this other person doesn't get to do this. So it's hard to enjoy some things.
In the aftermath, Robert's account with Uber and Lyft are suspended pending investigation, leaving him jobless. The incident has left a mark on him, a mark that won't fade even as the physical evidence of the encounter is cleared away. He is left with the memory of a life taken, a memory that will haunt him long after the incident fades from public memory. In the end, Robert was not charged with any crime, as he was within the rights to stand his ground under Florida law.
So it's a little confusing, but it's really simple. Jason thinks his girlfriend got into the Uber. He doesn't realize that Jason's girlfriend, Jessica, helped put Jasmine in the Uber. Now let me give you some more background. Neither Jasmine or Jessica or the Uber driver know each other. That was a terrible mistake on Jason's part, because the Uber driver not only happens to be a licensed to carry a firearm, concealed firearm in the state of Florida, but he just finished the police academy. So he understands the law. And at the end of the day, the message is clear. Don't mess with the Uber driver. Leave the Uber driver alone, because he just may be a certified police officer in waiting, and when you force him off of the road and threaten to shoot him with a gun while holding a cell phone in your right hand, which is a shiny object, in a second, you could get shot and killed. This is a justifiable homicide all day long. You have the right to protect yourself. This is a classic stand your ground case. A classic, and this was the intent of the law.
In the city of Clearwater, Florida, a seemingly ordinary day unfolds on July 19, 2018. Brittany Jacobs, a 29-year-old woman, drives to the Circle A food store with her boyfriend, Marquise McLaughlin, and their 3 young children. The sun shines brightly as they pull into the store's only handicapped parking space, a decision that unknowingly sets the stage for a tragic turn of events. Marquise, a 28-year-old man, steps out of the car with their 5-year-old son, leaving Brittany and their other children in the vehicle. They enter the store to buy snacks and drinks, unaware of the tension that is about to unfold outside. Meanwhile, Brittany remains in the car, parked in the handicapped spot, waiting for Marquise and their son to return. As the minutes tick by, a 47-year-old man named Michael Draka pulls up in his Toyota. He parks next to Brittany's car and begins to circle it, his eyes scanning for a disabled parking placard. The absence of the placard irks him, sparking an altercation that would soon escalate beyond anyone's expectations. The argument between Brittany and Michael grows heated, their voices echoing in the parking lot. Inside the store, witnesses report hearing the escalating dispute. Marquise, alerted by the commotion, exits the store. He sees Michael arguing with Brittany and, in a protective impulse, pushes Michael to the ground. The situation spirals out of control in a matter of seconds. Michael, while still on the ground, pulls out a weapon. He fires a single round at Marquise, who stumbles back into the store and collapses in front of his son. The joyous day has turned into a nightmare. Paramedics arrive within 19 minutes, but it's too late. Marquise perishes at Morton Plant Hospital at 4:04 p.m. The entire incident, from the argument to the fatal event, is captured on CCTV cameras. In the aftermath of the shooting, Michael places the gun in his SUV and waits for law enforcement to arrive. He cooperates with the deputies, allowing himself to be handcuffed and transported to the North District Station for further questioning by detectives. His defense, you ask? being under imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury. As the investigation unfolds, the community of Clearwater, Florida is left reeling. A family trip to the store has ended in a tragedy. A life has been lost, and the question of whether this was a justifiable act hangs heavy in the air. The case becomes a stark reminder of how quickly situations can escalate and how decisions made in the heat of the moment can have life-altering consequences. The legal proceedings begin and the courtroom buzzes with anticipation. The prosecution and defense teams are both prepared, their strategies meticulously planned out. The judge enters the room and the room falls silent. The prosecution presents their case first. They paint a vivid picture of the events that transpired on the fateful day at the gas station. They describe how Brittany Jacobs, Marquise McLaughlin, and their 3 children, all under the age of 6, had stopped at the Circle A food store in Clearwater, Florida. They detail how Michael Dreyka, the defendant, had approached their car, which was parked in a handicapped parking space, and started an altercation with Brittany. The prosecution then moves on to the crux of their argument. They describe how Marquise had exited the store and pushed Michael to the ground after seeing him arguing with Brittany. They recount how Michael had pulled out a weapon, and while Marquise was backing away, fired a single round at Marquise, who then ran back into the store and collapsed in front of his son. The prosecution emphasizes the captured CCTV footage. The defense, on the other hand, argues that Michael had acted in self-defense. The defense argues that Michael had felt threatened by Marquise and had no other option but to fire his weapon. The trial continues for several days, with both sides presenting their arguments and cross-examining witnesses. The evidence is presented, the arguments are made, and the testimonies are heard. Now it's up to the jury to decide. Was the shooting a justifiable act of self-defense, or was it an unjustifiable act of violence? The jury deliberates for hours, weighing the evidence and considering the arguments presented by both sides. Finally, the jury returns to the courtroom. The foreperson stands and delivers the verdict. Michael is found guilty. The room falls silent as the words echo through the courtroom. In this case, the prosecution successfully argued that Michael's use of force was not reasonable. They pointed out that Marquise was retreating when Michael fired, which was captured on surveillance video. Based on the CCTV footage, it was concluded that Marquise was stepping away from Michael when he pulled the trigger, not toward him. The motion of Marquise stepping away from Michael shows that he was not further threatening Michael and his life. The evidence was crucial in challenging the notion that Michael was in imminent danger at the time he pulled the trigger.
To prove the crime of manslaughter, the state must prove the following 2 elements beyond a reasonable doubt. Number 1, Marquise McLaughlin is dead. No issue with that. Unfortunately, number 2, Michael Dreyka intentionally committed an act that caused the death of Marquise McLaughlin. Okay? So, did he intentionally shoot him? Yes. The way this case has been framed for you is whether or not this defendant was justified in shooting Marquise McLaughlin. But I'm going to frame it a little differently because based on the evidence, and really here's the $1 million question. We've heard so much evidence, okay? But here's the $1 million question you need to ask yourself. Was this defendant justified in shooting a man that came out to protect his family while he's retreating, while he was unarmed? That's the $1 million question. It was the most perfect shot he could take. Hit him right here, traveled through his lung, through his heart, rested on the other side. The most perfect shot he could take. Didn't hit him in the toe, foot, knee, calf, thigh, stomach. The most perfect shot. Did he reasonably believe, as Marquise McLaughlin was backing up and turning to go into the store, that he was about to die? Because that's what that instruction says. Did the defendant reasonably believe he was going to die as Michael McLaughlin backs away when that firearm comes out? Did the defendant reasonably believe he was about to suffer great bodily harm? Was he about to be beaten to a pulp as Michael McLaughlin went backwards? Was he about to die? Was this defendant about to die or be beaten to a pulp when he took the first step back? Absolutely not. What about the second step back? Absolutely not. He's getting farther back. What about the third step back? Absolutely not. What about when he turns to go to the store? Absolutely not. And when you look at those still photographs, you'll see that Michael McLaughlin's foot is facing where he wants to go. And the only reason his eyes are on that defendant is because he's looking at the firearm that's about to kill him. His entire body is saying, I give up, I'm leaving. And pay attention to this, which I'm sure you already have. When the defendant's on the ground, you could see both Robert Castelli and Michael McLaughlin start to move before the gun comes out. They both simultaneously recognize that he's pulling a firearm. And before that gun is even out, Michael McLaughlin is retreating. Watch the video, you'll see it. And when the gun's out, he's in full retreat, and he can't go back any farther because that car's there, and that's when he takes his turn to go to the store. That's exactly what you see on the video. Michael McLaughlin is reacting perfectly to what happened. Now, can you argue that the defendant could have pulled out that firearm? Absolutely. We could even say that he was justified in pulling the gun. But that was it. There was no reason for him to shoot and kill Michael McLaughlin. It was over when that gun came out. So arguably, was he right in pulling the gun out? Sure, but could he have killed him? No, because he wasn't about to die. He's holding a firearm. He's holding the weapon that ends the whole thing. How could he reasonably believe he was about to die? He didn't. That's why it's not justifiable use of deadly force. You know what Marquise McLaughlin's guilty of? He's guilty of loving and trying to protect his family. And he died because of it. The defendant is guilty of manslaughter. Thank you.
State of Florida versus Michael Draka, case number 1809851CF, as to the charge of manslaughter. We, the jury, find as follows as to the defendant in this case. The defendant is guilty of manslaughter as charged.
The case of Michael Draka underscores the boundaries of stand-your-ground laws, demonstrating the intricate balance between self-defense and excessive force. The legal standard for these laws hinges on a person's reasonable belief that such force is necessary to prevent imminent death, great bodily harm, or the commission of a forcible felony. Bradley Hoke and his wife Joanna had carved out a comfortable life together in the serene town of Dundon. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone else, where the pace of life is slow and the community is tight-knit. Children play in the streets without a worry, and neighbors greet each other by name. But this tranquility is about to be disrupted. On the evening of June 15th, they're settled in for their usual movie night. The room is bathed in the flickering light from the television screen. They're engrossed in the plot, their minds far removed from the reality of their surroundings. But their calm and peaceful evening is about to take a sharp and unexpected turn. Outside, the blackness of the night is suddenly sliced open by the harsh beam of a flashlight. A shadowy figure, shrouded in the cloak of darkness, is stealthily moving towards their house. The beam of the flashlight moves on their back porch, casting long, ominous shadows. From her spot on the sofa, Joanna spots the figure. Her heart skips a beat, then starts pounding like a drum in her chest. She nudges Bradley, her voice barely a whisper, as she alerts him to the potential danger. The movie, which moments ago held their attention, is now forgotten. A cold wave of fear washes over them, replacing the warmth of their peaceful evening. The reality of the potential intruder, a threat to their home, grips them, turning their tranquil home into a place of fear and uncertainty. The figure outside, unknown to the threatened couple, is not a stranger but a familiar face. It's Carl Pollock, their pool cleaner, a man who has been part of their lives for nearly a year, diligently cleaning their pool under the Florida heat. Carl is known for his punctuality, usually showing up in the afternoons when the sun is high in the sky. But today he's fallen behind on his work schedule and has decided to make up for lost time by cleaning the pool at 9 p.m., a time when the Hoke family is usually winding down for the day. In a lapse of judgment, Carl decides not to inform the Hoke family about his late visit. He doesn't realize that this decision, seemingly insignificant at the moment, is about to set off a chain of events with grave consequences. Inside the house, Joanna's fingers tremble as she calls 911. her voice barely above a whisper as she reports the potential intruder. Bradley, meanwhile, feels a surge of adrenaline. His mind races, filled with the primal need to protect his home and his wife from the perceived threat. He reaches out for his AR-15 rifle, a tool he hoped he'd never have to use. The weight of the weapon in his hands is a reminder of the gravity of the situation he finds himself in. The quiet night is shattered by the sound of the weapon. Bradley opens fire, the loud bangs echoing through the night. The flashlight Carl was holding drops to the ground, its beam wavering as it hits the ground. Carl, taken by surprise, runs off into the night, but Bradley, his senses heightened by fear, continues firing into the darkness. Each shot rings out into the night, a chilling testament to his determination to protect his home and his wife. In a span of 90 seconds that feels like an eternity, Bradley fires at least 30 times. Each shot piercing the quiet night, the sound echoing off the walls of their home and into the surrounding area. The rapid succession of the rounds creates a battlefield, a stark contrast to the calm and peaceful evening they had been enjoying. A 911 recording captures the events. The operator's voice, steady and calm, contrasts sharply with the fear and confusion that fills Joanna's words.
Somebody is just on our lanai. Somebody is around our house.
What's the phone number you're calling from?
And please come quickly.
Were they walking around the house?
No, they're trying to break. They were trying to break in, but I heard them and I saw them, and we don't know if they are armed or not. We just need somebody to come and check on the house. Please.
Okay, did you see the person that's outside?
Yes, it was a man.
Is it a white male, black male, Hispanic male?
They are. I couldn't tell. I think he was white, but I couldn't tell.
How old did he look?
Maybe 40, 30, younger, not old.
Okay, and what color shirt did he have on?
So he was in the lanai. It was completely dark. When I saw him, I quickly closed the curtain and locked the door.
Okay, that's fine. How tall did he look?
6. They have a battery.
And how much did he weigh? What was that?
Nothing, don't shoot.
What was that? Ma'am.
My husband. My husband.
What was that bang?
This was a shot.
Who made a shot?
They are going around the house.
Who? I need to know what that was.
I don't know, somebody's yelling.
Was that a gunshot?
Yes, it was a gunshot.
Who shot it? Who shot it?
My husband, because they are walking around here with the...
Who is it? What kind of gun does he have? Stop shooting.
Stop shooting.
Stop shooting.
Stop.
Stop shooting the gun.
Stop, Matthew.
What?
Stop.
I need him to stop shooting the gun.
Okay, stop. 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 Put it down. Put it on the floor, please.
Why?
Let's stay here.
What kind of gun is it?
Somebody, please.
I don't know.
No, somebody.
Did he shoot anybody?
Stop it.
Hello, ma'am.
Stop it, Matthew. Stop it, please. Matthew, stop it. Stop it, please.
Why? I need him to stop shooting the gun.
Here. Where are you? Where is the...
I need him to put down the gun, ma'am.
I need the police.
Ma'am, I need him to put down the gun.
We put it down. We put it down.
What kind of gun is it?
I don't know. It's an AR.
Is anyone shot?
We don't know. No, we don't want to get out of the house. The alarm is on.
What was he shooting at?
I don't know. Who's outside?
We are waiting for somebody to come and help. Not to stop.
What? Stop.
Please send somebody here.
What kind of gun is it?
It's an AR. We need somebody to come in, please.
They're on the way. They're coming as fast as they can.
Put it down. The gun is down.
Then, as abruptly as it began, the rounds stop. The sound of the last shots fade away, replaced by a deafening silence that hangs heavy. The night, once filled with the normal sounds of a peaceful neighborhood, now bears the weight of the event that just unfolded. In the aftermath of the events, Bradley remains oblivious to the identity of the figure. His mind is still in high alert, his senses heightened by the adrenaline coursing through his veins. It's not until the flashing light of law enforcement vehicles arrive at the scene that he begins to piece together the puzzle. Stepping out front, he sees a familiar sight that instantly sends a jolt of realization through him. Parked in front of the house is the pool truck, a sight he's seen countless times before. The realization hits him like a punch in the gut, leaving him breathless. The intruder he was so desperately trying to protect his wife from was not an intruder at all. It was Carl, their pool cleaner. The man he had seen many times cleaning their pool under the hot Florida sun was the same man he'd just attacked in fear and confusion. The weight of his realization settles heavily on him, replacing the relief he should be feeling now that the threat is over. The sheriff arrives on the scene. He assesses the backyard, the dropped flashlight, and the pool truck parked innocently in front of the home. He listens to the hoax account of the events, their voices still shaky from the adrenaline. Thankfully, Carl, the unsuspecting pool cleaner, has managed to escape the barrage of bullets unscathed. He is not hurt during the incident, a small miracle considering the number of rounds fired. However, he doesn't escape completely unharmed. The flying glass and debris propelled by the force of the bullets injure him. He is later taken to the hospital, his injuries a painful reminder of the terrifying event. Medical professionals tend to his wounds, cleaning and dressing them while he relives the night's events in his mind. As the night draws to a close, a sense of relief washes over everyone involved. The threat, although a misunderstanding, is over. Law enforcement leaves the scene, the hospital staff finish treating Carl's injuries, and Bradley and Joanna return to their home, the holes a stark reminder of the night's events. In a subsequent statement, the sheriff states that Carl, the pool cleaner, should have warned the Hoke family that he would be working so late. A simple phone call or text message could have prevented the night's events. He also stated that Bradley and Joanna will not be charged. Despite the fear and confusion, no real crime was committed. The sheriff explains that in this case, it is a classic example of Florida's stand your ground law. Bradley was in his home, a place where he has the right to feel safe and secure. When he thought an intruder was coming into his house, where he and his wife were enjoying a peaceful evening, he acted to defend his house. It's an unfortunate set of circumstances, but under the law, Bradley was within his rights to defend his home. The law designed to protect homeowners served its purpose tonight, albeit in a way that no one would have wished for.
This is a classic example of what's called the Castle Doctrine, or Florida's Stand Your Ground Law. Bradley Hokevar was in his home. He was in fear that someone was breaking in. The evidence from the video and from his statements, the audio, his wife's statements on the video, and to detectives, that there's no crime that was committed. He was in his home. He was defending what he thought was an intruder coming into his house where he and his wife were. It's an unfortunate set of circumstances. When we talk to pool guy, in hindsight, he should have probably let them know that he was coming at 9 o'clock at night. Again, he made no effort to contact them at all with Pollock. Something I didn't tell you, and I don't know to the extent that it matters, is Bradley Hokevar is a retired lieutenant colonel from the Army. So obviously he was versed in firearms and fighting and firing. But you could tell that they were concerned, afraid for their safety. And with those facts of somebody on your back pool deck, you yell at them, tell them to leave. They're still there. You hear noise. They're within a few feet of the door. And then you see the flashlight, and the flashlight's coming toward the doors. and that's when he fired. And again, it's consistent with the video. So it's fortunate that Pollock wasn't seriously injured. There's a lot of shots that were fired, and the bulk of those shots were after Pollock had left the pool deck. So this is one of those things that, I guess if I was going to sum it up, I mean, it's a terrible set of circumstances, but it's unfortunate, avoidable, but it wasn't in this case. It's probably one of those things that I would call lawful but awful. I mean, it's awful, but it's just an awful set of circumstances. But we're fortunate that nobody was seriously hurt. But again, there's no crime that was committed, and Hocevar was acting within the law when he fired.
Today's cases serve as examples of the complexities and potential consequences of stand your ground laws. These laws, which exist in many U.S. states, permit individuals to use force, including deadly force, to defend themselves without any requirement to evade or retreat from a dangerous situation. However, as these cases demonstrate, the application of these laws in the real-world scenarios can be fraught with ambiguity and controversy. In each of these cases, a confrontation escalated rapidly in a fatal encounter, with the individuals involved claiming they acted in self-defense. The proceedings that followed hinged on whether the use of deadly force was reasonable under the circumstances, a standard that can be highly subjective and dependent on the specific details of each case. Do you agree with all these cases' outcomes? Do you think stand your ground laws should be modified? We want to give a huge thank you to everyone over on Patreon. We want to give a big shout out to Nexus, Big Pepperoni Pizza, Chrissy R, Catherine D, Tony S, Tiffany D, and Dolce P. If you would like access to ad-free and uncensored versions of all Wicked videos, feel free to join our Patreon. Link in the description below. Thank you for watching, and join us next time when we explore the psychological maze of some of the most wicked people.